Hello everyone, my name is Niels. I'm a 3D environment artist and welcome to this new tutorial course. In this course we will go over on how to create a tileable roof texture using 3ds Max, Zbrush and Substance Designer. We will first go over our reference and the best strategy of creating this texture. Then we will make our base tile in 3ds Max, which we will throw into Zbrush, and we will create a few high poly variations of it. Then, once that is done, we will move back into 3ds Max, where we will set up our texture and make sure that it looks interesting and is perfectly tileable. After that, we will move into Marmoset Toolbag 3, where we will bake down all our maps for our textures. And at last we will move into Substance Designer, where we will set up our final texture and create our final maps, like our albedo map, our roughness, metallic, more details to our normal map, and even a bit more details to our height map. We will then render the final result in Marmoset Toolbag 3 and create the texture on portfolio quality, which will hopefully look really nice. So I hope you will enjoy this tutorial. My name is Niels, and thanks for watching 3DMotive.com. Okay, so before we dive into 3ds Max, let's go over our reference. So I got a few images, but we will only be using 2 or 3 reference images for our main reference. So the first image I got is this, and this is one of our main images, and what we want to do is we want to take mainly the shape of this. So I got another one here, which is pretty cool, nice close-up. So as you can see, it has sometimes it has a double one, and really the thing with these ones is that it's still quite visible, the bottom tile. So basically you also have these metal pins over here. Now I made this texture before and I tried to add in the metal pins, and it was pretty time consuming, and it ended up that the resolution wasn't good enough to really see them. So we will leave those out because it will just be wasted time. But for the rest, we do occasionally want to have like a double tile, like over here. We want to just have like broken off pieces that you can see here, just like small details, edge chips and everything. Just have everything not perfect and just a bit incorrect. Stuff like that. So like over here, it's quite cool how it breaks off. I also have this picture. It's nothing special. I didn't actually use it, but I just gathered some pictures just to see also the flow of the tiles from a bigger distance, that you can see how they are laid, that they aren't just perfectly straight and everything, which is quite cool. So let's see the next one. This one I also couldn't really use because it has like the same texture as one of our main pictures, but it is so noisy that it's just hard to see what's going on. Here's another nice one for like positioning that we will have a look at. Sometimes also here has a double or even triple one, which is always quite cool to have. And just like to have a nice reference of how the chips work on tiles like these. I don't know why this one is in. I will actually remove it because it's not even our style. And this I found quite cool. It's not the same type of roof, but it looks cool, so I just leave it in. And the last picture, which is our second main picture, for this one we will take the color, basically the albedo and the roughness and metallic, and also some of the normal map details that come in here. We will take that from this picture. So we will basically combine the shape, the overall shape and everything from this picture, and we will pick the color for this one, because in here I don't really find it looking that interesting, because it's all dark and grey and depressing. So I like to make it a bit more colorful and have like cool dirt and everything in there. So that's going to look really cool. That's about it for the reference. I think it's time to jump into Max and start making our tiles ready for sculpting into Zbrush. So I'm going to just, for my convenience, drag my reference onto my second screen. So I will still constantly be looking at it. Sometimes I will drag it back and forth a bit, but for now, just so it's easier for me to see, because else it's just in the way. So if you open up Max, let's just set our mode to shaded, Alt W to higher it up. So this tutorial is sort of intermediate, I would say. So I'm not going to like explain to you the very basics of how to use Max, 3DMotive has plenty of basic tutorials for that. So I assume that you already know some basic modeling. We don't need to do a lot, it's quite a simple process because we don't want to add in too much detail yet. But just for now. So basically, I'm now mainly looking at this one, and what we want to capture is that the front is bigger than the back, so like it goes a bit, maybe I have a better view over here. It goes from thick or from thin to thick or thick to thin, whatever way you want. Let's see, do I have a better image of this? In here you can really see it. So it goes from thick to thin so that you can shove it under your next tile. So that's what we want to capture. And basically what we will do is our tiles will look like having one at the top, one at the bottom, and that's one tile for us. That's one tile that we will sculpt and place. So I'm just drawing this over again, and let's get started. I think it's best if we go to our front view, and I personally like to use the line tool a lot because it just gives me quite a bit more control. And I'm just going to, so I don't worry about the scale right now. Later on I will drag in like a character reference. Well, actually I don't even need to drag in a character reference because it's a tileable texture. But I will just match the size better. So I'm just turning on snap. Just having one, clicking on the other and holding it, and then make sure that over here at drag type it's set to Breezer. And I'm just going to match the curve the way it is in my reference, which is something like, well, since it's quite big, I would say like this. Yeah, that should do it. There we go. So there's our curve. So it's very handy because we only need to make one. I will, where are you? Pick a sweep. I have my modifiers in my modifier stack. You can also just go down and find it. Let's set this to, where are you? Come on. Oh, there you are. Edge and fade. It's always a bit annoying when you use a different max version at work than you do at home. You always get confused with where all the tools are. Anyway, for which sweep, let's set this to bar. Let's set the length to, let's make it 15. 20? 20 is too long. 27. 17. 17 seems about right. I actually like 16. So do get this right the first time, because after we start sculpting this, then we can't easily go back. Thickness, let's make it 0.5. Seems about right thickness. Let's make it also a bit more polished, so... Oh. Okay, that doesn't matter. It's probably because the line tool is in here. If you want, you can set the line tool. Interpolation. I don't know if I pronounce it correctly. But I'm going to just set this to 16. Just to make it a bit higher poly. Okay, so that's cool. With that done, what we want to do now is I like to stack up my stuff, so I don't really like to collapse things because sometimes I want to go back. Of course, this is more for bigger models. For something this small, it doesn't really matter that much. Anyway, turn off your snap and let's just lower down the back. Let's see, something like this. Seems about alright. Just want to test it out by copying this. You can hold shift for that. And let's turn on snap rotate and let's rotate it 180 degrees. And let's just have it, see, something like this. So how we would be copying them is like this. And like this they would just pretty much keep going, as you can see. Anyway. Ooh, we already get some problems over here. We can just snap that in here. Okay, I feel like I'm forgetting something, like I would need to push this up. But I'm not sure about that. I actually don't think that I need to. If you are not sure, what you can do is you can like pick a few and like already prototype them by placing them on top of each other. So what we would do is it would go under it, so it would sort of like go like this. And yeah, the first thing I notice is that over here this isn't going very well. So that's just, I'm not sure if it's the shape or the angle or something. I think it's the angle. I think it should be more around here. But yeah, then we get this angle here, which I don't really like. I'm just going to play around with the shape a bit. Let's see how this works. So yeah, as you can see, I'm just taking my time to really get it done right at the beginning. See, that works already a bit better. I'm just still looking at my reference, of course. Yeah, that looks like the reference, so what I do want to do is I want to actually scale things down a bit. Let me just click through my reference and have an extra look. Yeah, so they're quite a lot thinner, so is this alright? Yeah, I think that should work. Let's try it out by quickly just placing a few like this. Just placing a few at the bottom, and it doesn't really matter if they like clip into each other in here. Normally, of course, in real life it would matter, but because it wouldn't be possible. But since we are making a top-down view, it doesn't matter that much. And from here we would like slowly rotate our tiles up and down and everything. We will do this in Max because it's a lot easier and faster to do in Max than in Zbrush. But yeah, it will look quite cool. I think we do need to be careful like with the rotating, but since it's top-down view it doesn't matter that much. And you can have them, of course, or of course they will be on different positions. Sometimes you will have like a cool double one, as I said before. Stuff like that. So, do they work? So it's just like a quick lens, and I think they work for me. So I'm just deleting the rest of them. So this is our low poly base tile that we will use. Just double checking, okay. And now what I want to do is, so I was thinking of like using Turbo Smooth in here to already give it some polish, but I think we will just do a Dynamesh inside of Zbrush to fix our poly count. So with this done, let's just save our scene. And I call this tile setup. Should be fine. Tile setup, here we go. And I just want to export our two tiles. Make sure to set to an OBJ. And I want to call this base tile underscore 2Z. That's how I always say it, 2Z or 2max. So that I remember which way this one had to go. And I just set the preset always to Zbrush, because that's the fastest way. Done. Let's save. And now we can start by opening up Zbrush already and just do some quick sculpting on our tiles. Okay, so here we are in Zbrush. Now I am using my Wacom tablet to do everything. I would advise using a tablet if you aren't using Zbrush often, because it's just nearly impossible to do proper details with your mouse. Anyway, let's import our tile. So here we go. And let's just drag this in here. And let's make sure to set on edit. As for the layout, my layout is slightly different because I have a custom layout. But it's still the same. Sometimes you see me picking like a brush in here. But you can also pick it in here. Or actually, you know what, I will pick everything using the original layout just to make it easier for all you guys. So if you first go to document, and let's just set here the range to 0 because I don't like to have the gradient background. And I'm just changing my material, which you can just do here, like basic material. Now if we go to subtool, and if we just, where are you? I think it was split to parts. Yes, okay, that's the one. So now we have the two tiles separately, which for now is quite nice because we are going to Dynamesh them, make a base sculpt out of them, and then make variations on top of that. So with these two parts, let's first start by Dynameshing this. And if you just go to geometry and just drop down to Dynamesh, just press Dynamesh, let's see. It could be. I'm a bit worried about like the stripes. Let's try Siri mesh. Okay. Let's actually go back into Max. So I forgot to do this. This is what I was talking about, like that I was worried about adding the what is it? Turbo Smooth. And now I remember why I would do that, because Dynamesh doesn't always work that well with low poly. Anyway, I'm just using my Swift loop and I'm just adding some support loops here so that the model doesn't completely collapses. Let's add let's add another one here. There we go. And now if we just throw on a turbo smooth, we turn off edge surfaces, you can see that it's nice and smooth. And that's what I want. So let's do the same with this one. Just add our show white is so buggy. Probably because I forgot to reset the X-form, but that's no problem. It's just one of those things which, yeah, doesn't matter that much. Okay, I'll see how long I can keep this up because it's 30 degrees in here and I don't have an airco. So that's going to be fun. Sitting on the leather chair in 30 degrees. Anyway, let's export this again. Let's replace it, export, done. And now we can go back into Zbrush. If we just click on like the cylinder or whatever and just import our base model, there we go. Here's our base model. It felt like I did that quite fast, so yeah, I just press like one of the base models and then I press import and then it will replace the base models with your thing. But as I said before, this is sort of an intermediate tutorial, so I expect you to already have at least some knowledge. So with this, let's split the parts. And now you can see that geometry is still not good for sculpting because there's way too much space in between. So now it's good if we use our Dynamesh. It's a bit too low, let's set the resolution to 300. Okay, 344 seems to do the trick. And yeah, okay, let's not divide just yet. Actually, what I want to do is I actually want to go a bit lower. So let's set this to 200, around 200. That should be fine because now if we subdivide this, it becomes smooth. So around 200 and then one subdivision and that will do it. So Dynamesh here also 200. Turn off Dynamesh because we don't want to accidentally re-Dynamesh things. see, did I turn it off? Yes, I turned it off. Okay. Now what we want to do is we want to already make a base sculpt to save some time, and this is basically just some base edge chips here and there, no big details. And once we have done that, we will duplicate this over and we will make like bigger variations on it, and I think we will make like 4 or 5 tiles. That should be fine. So let's get started. I think I want to use the trim dynamic for this. Let's see how that looks. Actually want to subdivide it once more. There we go. Okay, yeah, trim dynamic works fine. And I just want to break up the edges a little bit. Make sure to look at your reference. I like to look at like this one for the base detail, just to have like all the little edge chips here and there, and that it's just a bit wavy and broken and everything, so that nothing is perfect. And I want to just go ahead and start sculpting all of this. And I will do this quite fast. It doesn't need to have too much detail yet, because small details, there's no use in having very small details in this, because we are going to do that in Substance Designer. So yeah, it's just mainly the base details, just like the edge chips and everything. And it's also important not to have too many small details, because that will mess up the height map, because we want to have a very clean height map that will work quite nicely. I'm always excited to see the height map of this one, because it looks really cool once we got it. But you'll see. That will the height map creation will probably happen in volume 2, because we won't get to that in time. Okay, if you like press solo, it's a bit easier to get everything. Although I know it doesn't really matter making anything here at the bottom, just for the sake of the base, in case we ever get an event that we can still see the bottom. I just want to have at least some edge chips. So it does, as you can see, it doesn't need to be too big, just sometimes have like a bit of a thicker one, something like that. And just break up the edges a bit. And I'm just moving and tapping away on the edges to break it up. There you go. And then like here in the edges, it's quite cool if you just make it a bit more, because on the on the edges, on like the outer points, you often have the most wear and tear, because those are the most vulnerable pieces. So yeah, the bottom one, I'm just doing it very quickly, because you most likely aren't even going to see this, as I said before. There we go. And later on I might want to time lapse the second tile, just to save some time, because it's the exact same process. It's not really that I have anything interesting to tell. So yeah, here are basic edge chips. Start a bit bigger way over here. I just want to pick the move tool, and I'm just going to very slightly have some incorrections in like the movement, so it's not perfectly straight. Something like this. Or actually, let's also have some on like the top. Looks quite, it's a bit too much. Needs to be very subtle, so it's still the base. There we go. It's important to get this white the first time, because once we start baking it's very annoying, or actually once we start the placement even, it's very annoying to go all the way back just to fix things. Okay. So with this one done, I will most likely do a time lapse for this one because it's the exact same process as this. So we just want to divide one more time, and we just want to do the same sculpting process that we did before. Okay, so I went ahead and just time-lapsed this. So I'm just sculpting in some edges. So for this it's pretty straightforward, so of course I don't have a lot to tell about it, I'm just chipping it away. But something interesting that you can also do that. So for this texture, of course, for the normal map it needs to be quite plain, so that we get a good and I mean the height map, so that we get a good and clear height map. But if, for example, you have an object or you want to make a texture that has something that is very damaged, what you can do is often you can use the surface tab, where you can generate noises, and if you then generate a really strong noise, then you could technically use that, and then once you start optimizing it, it will just leave in like the shape of the noise. This is also handy if you want to have like dents and everything in there. So that's something I like to do, for example, for stone. So the noise, the detailed version of it, you wouldn't be able to export because then your max would be way too slow when you're setting things up. But it can still, even on the low version, it can still give some really interesting results. So yeah, that's just a quick tip. And we're now almost done with the sculpting of the time lapse. So yeah, here I'm just moving things out a little bit again to make it less perfect. It might look like a small something to do, but in the end it will make a big difference where we have a lot of different tiles just hanging around. So yeah, then it will be quite cool. Okay, so that was about it. Let's get on to the next part. Just finishing it up. Okay, so with the base done, let's quickly save our scene. There we go. And now what we want to do is we want to make a few variations of it. So for the variations we don't need to have them split, because that will just, for me at least, make everything a bit confusing. So I just want to merge down, just press OK. There we go, so now it's just one object. And I think we want to make, if you look at our reference, let's actually have a better reference. In here we can have a good look. So like 1, 2, like this is quite cool, that means 3, 4, let's say 4. And if you find some very different damage, then of course we can always make more. But for now, so we have our base. This will already be 1, so that's already done, quite easy. Let's duplicate this, and let's just turn off one of them. And now for this one, we just want to make the damage a bit bigger. So we will basically go from small to big. So you can just like really start chipping off some of the edges like this. Oh, wrong button. Maybe like chip off the ends a bit more. I want to set my focal shift a bit lower, so that's a bit sharper everything. Okay. If you want to reach like this, but since we have them merged, they should still be the same poly. So if you just hold Ctrl Shift and click on one of them, then it will isolate it so that you can reach it better. if you hold Ctrl Shift and just click like in the center, it will de-isolate it. So like this, I can just Ctrl Shift, add some extra damages just below, just make it look cool, and Ctrl Shift again. See? Easy as that. Okay, so since we won't see a lot of this, I want to focus my main damages here at the center. There we go, and just really chip it off a bit more. It's quite nice. I do not want to make it too obvious, because if you of course are going to repeat things, we don't want to have very obvious that you can see the same tile over and over again. So for example, this was a bit too strong, so I'm now just blending it out a bit more. Ctrl Shift, and in here I just want to make this damage just slightly bigger. There we go. Corner a bit nicer looking, and so I will do this one, and then we will probably time lapse the rest, since it's just sculpting away, making things look cool. So yeah, there isn't any, well, I would almost say there isn't a lot of skill to this, because you're just painting it away a bit. But yeah, it's good to know how damages form, so that's why I keep looking at my reference on how it is, and this always quite sharp. So I like to also blend that it's going quite sharp. Like over here, that it's just all of a sudden like a chip, just gone. There we go. That's about it for this one. Just have some few more small details. So if you now activate all of them and we just press expose, then you can see base tile number 1, which looks quite nice, although over here I do want to make this a bit longer. See? So yeah, like this you can just easily compare them, and if you want to move them back into each other, you can just expose them again. Which I just really love this tool. It just looks cool. Some more damages here. Oh wait, of course that's not going to be added, so I keep forgetting that. Okay, I think I want to make some slight more damages over here, just to have everything a bit bigger. Should do it. Maybe I have to a bit more to the side here. Chip this off. So make sure to always look from top view, because this is how it will render out, sort of. Anyway, that looks okay. Cool. Also make sure that most of your details are focused at the front, because the back will most of the time be like shoved, or there will like one be shoved on top of it. So most of the details will be at the front. I actually forgot about that when doing these details, although they are nice, so we might use them. You might want to, like me, just focus a bit more on the front now, just to have some extra details in here. So I'm just making this sharper. There we go, that should do it. Maybe with like a small chip over here. Okay, so with that one done, So what I want to do is I want to go to our first one again. And now we can duplicate it and we can make our third variation. And I will probably time lapse this from now on, just because it's the same thing over and over again. Okay, so we are back into the time lapse again. And once again, we are just sculpting away. Not much to tell, so I will just talk over it. You can pretty much see what you do. Maybe I'll give some tips. So, another tip. We do not want to sculpt in any cracks or anything, although it's quite tempting to do so. But we will be doing that in Substance Designer. What you can do is if you have like a really visible crack that is quite specific, then you could sculpt it in something like that almost the tile is torn in half, which could be quite cool. But then again, if you do that, you cannot use that tile often because it will be very obvious in a tileable texture if you have a specific crack, of course. So yeah, I'm just finishing up the tiles here. Again, doing some different movements and everything to make it not look as perfect. I can remember trying out the expose tool and that it stopped working later on, or transpose tool. I'm not really sure what it's called, but anyway. So yeah, that was a bit awkward, but for the rest the tiles are starting to look quite nice. And I'm actually narrating this after I already finished recording the entire tutorial, and I must say that the final result is looking quite cool. So if you reach around this quality, then it would be enough to just make a proper height map out of it, which we will be rendering in Marmoset Toolbag 3. And for me, Marmoset Toolbag 3 has become my new main baking program, I would say, just because it's so fast to set up your cage and it's just so precise and fast to bake everything, which I quite like. So I would definitely recommend it. If you are just a hobbyist or just an individual, then yes, it can be a bit expensive to buy a license for Marmoset, but if you are going to do this often, it is totally worth it, I would say. I also use it if I bake normal models, for example. So yeah, it is a really cool program. Now, as you can see, you can also see me sculpting in a lot of detail that I forgot that will actually be covered by other tiles. So like everything at the back, so that's too bad. So yeah, just focus mostly on the front, I would say, because that's where you will see most of the detail. I also actually end up making another extra tile, so we now got 4. And I believe I said that we would make 4, but we are actually going to make 5 of them. And the 5th one is going to be, I would say, just below medium amount of detail. So as you can see here, I'm just sculpting it in a little bit more, just so that it's a very average tile that we can use, but it's not that average that it will look almost the same as our base tile. So yeah, there's no real science to this. I am looking at my reference, yes, but I also like to sometimes just sculpt out of my head. To be careful to still make it feel a bit realistic, how the chipping goes, and not that you just go crazy and have chipping that doesn't really make any sense. But yeah, looks quite cool. Okay, so this tile is almost done. We are nearing the end of our time lapse, so I will now go back into normal time again and we will resume our tutorial. Okay, so I ended up actually making 5 tiles because I wanted to get one that was just slightly more damaged than our base. So here's a base, here's the slightly more damaged. No wait, this is a slightly more damaged, sorry. Then we still have this one, bigger one, and a lot of damage. So now it's time to optimize them so that we can export them to 3ds Max, because we will do the setup in 3ds Max. So to make a perfect tileable texture in 3ds Max, it is a bit more tricky. but it is so much faster to do it in Max than in Zbrush, for me at least, because of the movement tools and everything. And in Max we have some really cool scripts that we can use that very quickly can generate interesting shapes and everything. So for the optimization, we just want to go to plugin, and let's drag that over here, and we just want to use Decimation Master. It's quite a common tool to quickly optimize it, because we don't need any clean geometry or anything, and we only need to have the basic shapes. So with Decimation Master, what I want to do is I want to actually turn on all my tools, and I just want to press pre-process all, and now it will go through all the tools and count polys or whatever. I'm honestly not really sure how it works, but hey, I'm not a technical artist, so okay. So now that's done, it's all processed, and now we just want to press decimate all, and I like to keep it on 20%, because what we will do is we will decimate it on 20%, then we'll reprocess again, and then decimate again, because I find that it gives me a better result. So I'm just going to decimate all of them, and if it doesn't take too long I won't have to pause the video. There we go. So now it's only actually one is 300k polys, and if you would look at the wireframe you can also see how it's a lot messier, but that doesn't matter. We will just pre-process all again, and we just do this a few times until we have only the basic shapes left. So we still have some of the edge damage left, but we do need to keep it quite low, because when we are going to copy it in Max like 50 times or something, your computer is going to cry if you have too many polys. Well, depending on how strong your computer is, of course. Mine isn't too strong, so there we go. Decimate all. There we go. Now we are only at 60, and every time just have a look and see if your basic shapes are still here, which they are. So turning everything on again, pre-process, process, and it goes faster the more times you do it, because of course it needs to process less polys. So now we are at 11k, and now you can start to see the polys. If we zoom in here, you can start to see the individual polys. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pre-process again. I'm going to try it on 20%, and if that breaks the model too much, then we can of course just go higher. So 20% is just a little bit too much, so let's set this to 50% so that it doesn't take off that much. Okay, now let's have a look at every tile. 5k, that's doable. It's looking good, and remember, in here it might look a bit jagged or whatever you want to call it, but in Max of course we have smoothing groups, so we can just throw on some smoothing and that will make everything look better again. So those are tiles, as you can see, it's quite a bit lower poly. Now with all the tiles done and ready, we can start by exporting them. Before we do it, actually let's save this as base sculpt underscore optimized, just in case we need to go back to the sculpting. We do not need to like redynamize and everything. And with that all done, with everything on, we just want to press export all subtools. Let's set it to our export folder, and let's call this base style underscore to max. There we go, and that is now exported. I'm just going to save one final time. I'm an oversaver. Here we go. Okay, and now we can go into Max and we can actually set up our texture. Okay, so we are back in 3ds Max, and now what we can start doing is we can start by importing our tiles, which is going to be fun, and then we can place the entire texture. So for these old tiles, we can just get rid of them because we still have the OBJ for it, so it's not like they're lost. And now if we just import, oh, sorry for that, sometimes my screen wants to go into sleep mode. Anyway, import and then base style to max. Let's import it as an edit poly and set the preset to Zbrush. And let's import this. So here are base styles. Of course they are still on top of each other. Okay, so if you just turn off edges and faces, here we go, 5 tiles. And together if you press 7 you can see how many polys. Where are you? I'm just going to statistics and turn on my select polys. So yeah, 29k verts, 60k polys, which is quite a bit, yes. But technically if you would copy this like 20 times, if it still runs fine like this, then it should be fine. And else, if you really have problems, what you can try to do is you can try in here to throw on a Pro Optimizer and just calculate it. And then like lower it down until you do not see any changes. Like you see, so we can actually go quite a bit lower if you want. So we can go to like 35k, which only gives us 4k polys. If I would show you the wireframe. So yeah, that's quite a bit lower, but if we do not need it, then I do not mind. So anyway, first of all, they are the wrong way around, so let me just rotate these. Let's move them up here, and let's throw them in its own layer. So in here in layer editor, let's call this base styles. Just keep things organized. Now what we want to do is we basically want to start by the basic placement. For that we first need to decide how many tiles we actually want to have across. And I was thinking of having like 7 or 10, and based on that we can scale them. So I'm just going to quickly check my grid spacing if it's okay. So grid spacing is in centimeters, which is fine. Basically what we want to do is we want to create a basic plane and make sure to turn on snap. That's quite important in this case because we are going to work with values. Sorry, I think I have here, don't set it on vertex because else it tries to revert to the grid points. Anyway, snap and place. So there we go, this is our basic plane. In the UV map it will also just have perfect UV. We can actually set the segments to 1. Okay, and now what we need to do is we actually need to figure out how many we want to place across. So let's turn off snap. So I would say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, these are already 6. So that's quite a little. Just thinking how much. I think if we get around 12 across, that should be doable to also handle for the PC, but also just to give a nice look to it, variation. So I'm just moving this up, and what I want to do is it only needs to be very rough right now. Let's just moving it here in the center. Let's move this around roughly to how we would want to place it, and let's set this number of copies to 12. Okay, so that became 13. 1, 2, 3. So 1 less. There we go. Now for these, if we go to our center, just try to set the pivot exactly here on the center line. Again, it doesn't need to be super precise. So we just want to scale this up until over here it is like split in half, like this, roughly. And now you want to check the scale, and the scale has become 122, so let's make it 120 3 on all sides. And that's the base scale. So with that, if we just pick or take one of those tiles back, because I forgot to actually copy it. Oh, sorry. Let's go to scale. 123, it's 120, 123, 123 I mean. And also for these, all the scale can just be on 123. So now they should all be the same scale. Let's move them apart again. So, same scale, same height. With this done, we can start with the placement. So, before I go and do the placement, there is a script that I will make a lot of use from, and that's called Soulburn scripts. So this is a free script, and you can just, if you go into Google and type in something like 3ds Max Soulburn script in here, you can just get it here. So unfortunately for legal reasons I cannot actually give you the script, so you will have to download it yourself. But basically Soulburn scripts is a combination of a lot of scripts like thrown into one script. So once you got the script, just go here in scripting and run it. And then if you go to customize user interface and toolbars, and in here if you type in Soulburn scripts and you pick the, let's see, where are you? There's like one that is called Soulburn Script Listener UI, and if you drag that one into your box, then you can always get all your scripts in one go. Ah yeah, here, so this one. So get the purple one with the UI, and just drag it in here. It will appear in your toolbox, and then if you click on it here, you can see all the different scripts that it has. So we will be using this quite a bit because it speeds things up a lot. But before we do that, we first need to make our texture perfectly tileable. So to make a texture perfectly tileable, what we want to do is we want to actually lay out our entire grid or our entire texture with only this tile. Because what we will do then is we will randomly replace this tile. Like for example, we will say replace 20% of this tile with this one, and like that we can have more variation in it. But for this, just for consistency's sake, it will be a lot nicer if we just give this tile. So make sure that your pivot is in the center. And then what I want to do is, actually for all of them, I want to move them up a bit because we don't want to have them clipping into the plane. So let's move them up to 5. So yeah, so that they are floating above. And now with this, what I want to do is I want to just go to my top view because I want to align them perfectly. And so 60 would align it perfectly in here. Although wait, now I think about it, it needs to be 30. Oh, sorry. 90, I think. 70? There we go. 70, sorry. I forgot that these are 20 centimeters long, so that it is exactly here in the corner, because we will also need to go vertical and horizontal. So if it's set to 70, and this one needs to be minus 70, is that exactly the center? Yes, that is exactly, so that it is exactly in the center. Then if we copy this and we set this one to, I'm just cheating here and just moving it already there, and let's set this to 70. So this one is minus 70, this one is 70, and the top can still be at 70. Now these would flow over each other perfectly, or they should be. They should be flowing over perfectly when we start tiling it. So with these two selected, we want to make our base, which is that we want to move this forward. Let's say, let's actually go a bit closer. because if we can do this white immediately the first time, we can like just copy it over a bunch of times. And just select here your center, and let's move it forward to, I'm just looking at my reference. Actually, I want to cancel that because I want to have better reference. I'll actually drag it up here. So yeah, we want to look at this, how far they are extended inwards. So in here, it is a bit hard to see, as you can see. So I think we, oh, wrong button. So I think we will actually need to go a bit on feeling, on how far it is extended, and we will make the double ones after this. So I'm just going to move this, I think this is the right distance, and then move it down until it's properly extended like this. And then if we can just set this to, I'm just going to set this to quite a lot so that I can remove them after. And yes, they are going down right now, don't worry about that. It does mean that we will need to move things up to 15. Oh, it's not what I meant. Let's move things up like this. And I need to make sure that here the bottom is also perfectly aligned. So 70. Ah yeah, that's the center, that's a tricky one. Minus 70. And this one also minus 70, because they need to flow in together perfectly again. I might, so it is always, I always get confused with like the calculations on the top and the bottom. So I might actually need to go back later on and fix this. But I think if they are like this, then this should be white. So we want to have it a bit closer. So we want to extend it a bit more. So I'm just going to remove this. So yeah, making the base is really important to get white the first time. So that's why I'm just taking my time and moving these forward a bit. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So that these ones can be set to minus 70. It's close enough. Should work. You shouldn't be able to notice it. If you want, you can move everything back just a little bit. Like this. It's no problem. Okay. So now that we have those, we will make the center parts. What we also don't need to forget is in here we want to shift them around a bit. So if I have this, let's see, let's give good over here. You can see that they are not perfectly aligned, all of them, which is what we want. So some of them are quite perfect aligned, but we do not want that. We want to make it look a bit more interesting. So I'm just going to do that based on that. So that means that we will probably get some problems later on with this. But for now, we can just select this row. Let's actually save our scene. And if we just duplicate this until, is this about right? Until here. Just copying it. No, that's actually not right. It needs to be further in. I don't want to have the gap to be so big. The gap to be more something like this. There we go. Just remove this. And yeah, here we run into a bit of trouble. So we need to move it out a bit further. We just need to, I just like to just get it close. It doesn't need to be that precise, but I do want to get it quite close. So, and don't mind that it's like clipping over there, because you can never see that since we are looking at the top down view. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Let's remove that one. Too far. Of course. we'll get there. Slightly closer. You would think this is quite a slow process, but that's better. But it would actually take a lot longer, for me at least, if I would need to do this in Max or in Zbrush. So I'm just going to move all of them now slightly closer. Let's freeze our plane. Just to even it out, I'm just going to move this a bit closer. And then when we're done with this, you won't even notice the difference. At least I hope. Okay, and as you can see, it's looking like a tileable texture. Of course, it's way too perfect right now, so that's something that we will fix. So yeah, let's now really just change the positions and make it look interesting. Okay everyone, so that was part 1 of this 3-part tutorial course. So as a little recap, in this part we went over our reference on what we are actually going to make. Then we went ahead and we made very quickly just a low poly in 3ds Max, which we exported to Zbrush. In Zbrush we sculpted everything, made all the big details that are nice to be baked down into a normal map and a height map, and will work quite well. And we already made a quick start in setting up our tileable texture back in 3ds Max. So in the next 2 parts we will go over on how to finish setting up our texture in 3ds Max, having everything perfectly tileable, having some really nice variations and everything. And we will then be baking everything down in Marmoset Toolbag 3, to which point we will send everything to Substance Designer, where we will make our final texture and we will render everything out again in Marmoset Toolbag 3. So I hope you liked the first part, and I hope to see you in the second and third part of this tutorial course. My name is Emil Sliegers, and thanks for watching 3DMotive.com.